All right, I think we're ready to begin now. So it's no matter how many times we've done it before, it's always good to begin a session. In fact, it's always good to begin any activity that has any virtuous quality to it whatsoever with settling the mind, settling the body in a proper upright posture, or whatever posture is most comfortable for us. And then most importantly, setting our motivation for whatever that activity might be. So let's just have a minute or two for us each individually to prepare ourselves in this way. So it is good to bring to mind before any activity a clear understanding of why we're engaging in that activity, for what purpose. Because sometimes we discover when we ask ourselves that question that we really either have no motivation, we're just on automatic pilot, or sometimes we could have a very, we could say, very confusing, even negative motivation. We're doing that activity so that we can get through with it quickly so that we can do something else. And that something else might involve harm to ourselves or to others. So in either of those cases, either having no clear motivation whatsoever or having something which verges upon a negative motivation, that contaminates whatever activity that we engage in, even if it looks good from the outside. Like even if that activity is engaging in a charitable action. For example, working at a homeless shelter and distributing food, for example, which in and of itself is, of course, a very, very positive, beneficial, virtuous action. But we could be doing it solely to have someone think well of us, or to ingratiate ourselves with a particular group so that we can gain some benefit in the future, or any of a host of self-serving, ultimately negative motivations. And so even though the action may be virtuous, we're distributing food to people who need it, for example, and even though there's a positive benefit for those people, the amount of benefit we ourselves get from engaging in that action is very little. Because it's the motivation with which we do an activity that is the main determining factor of whether that activity will bear positive fruits or not for us. Mm-hmm. So when we're engaging, as we are now, in something which at least superficially resembles a Dharma activity, speaking about and listening to aspects of the path to enlightenment, focusing on practice of meditation, certainly that's something which falls within the arena of a dharma activity, a virtuous activity. We have to be clear. If we don't, if we don't have a clear motivation for why we're doing it, if like me, a lot of your activities are based on what time it is. Oh, it's 11 o'clock. I'm supposed to lead a meditation session. So I'm doing it because of the clock, right? So that's a very automatic way of living one's life. But nothing is clear about that. Mm-hmm. Nothing is particularly beneficial by a motivation because we're doing it because it's on the schedule. We're doing it because it's time to do it. Mm-hmm. None of those are beneficial motivations. And certainly if we're doing it because we want to impress somebody else, which is also a motivation which can so easily arise because of our self-absorption. Mm-hmm. And that really does contaminate the action itself. So why are we engaging in any activity, speaking about or listening to a supposed Dharma topic? Mm-hmm. Clearly, it's to gain benefit. But what kind of benefit and for whom? Well, for ourselves, if it's part of a path in which we're emulating the practices of the Bodhisattvas, attempting to move closer, bit by bit, to the fulfillment of our highest human potential, or in other words, the attainment of full enlightenment, even though that may take centuries to actually complete. As long as we feel that what we're doing is contributing to our journey to that fulfillment, and that we're doing it because by following or emulating the Bodhisattva's path leading to this full enlightenment, we're in the best possible position to repay the kindness that we've received from all beings. So let's spend just a minute or two bringing to mind how our lives and the lives of all the beings around us, in fact, all the beings on this planet, in this universe, all of them are like ourselves in wishing only to be happy and to be free from suffering. And in addition to that, our lives and their lives are intimately interconnected. How can one being, like ourselves, experience anything resembling true, lasting happiness if the people around us are miserable? So we expand the scope of our motivation for this meditation. We expand that scope, thinking to repay the kindness of others, and thereby being motivated to provide maximum welfare, maximum benefit to all the beings that we encounter, to all the beings we can think about, to all the beings that we know exist in this world. So let's spend a moment trying to personalize that by remembering the kindness that we've received from others. So now, to continue with a the series of breath awareness meditations that we began yesterday, we first check to see that our posture has two qualities to it. The first quality is that it is comfortable. It's not a good idea to think, oh, here's a perfect meditation posture, by looking at the picture of a seated Buddha, for example, and then try to emulate that, but do it in such a way that instead of being comfortable, we feel stiff, awkward, and uncomfortable. That doesn't produce a happy state of mind. So instead of trying to emulate a posture which is beyond us at the present moment, or which we don't understand how to do properly, it's best just to find a comfortable, upright posture. Not stiff, not exaggerated, but a posture in which we can feel comfortable within ourselves and yet alert, avoiding as much as possible slouching or slumping, and within the limits that our body allows, keeping the spine upright and straight. And once we have found a comfortable, upright posture, the kind of posture we feel that we can hold for the duration of this session, which will last within the next 30 or 40 minutes, something like that. Then we can make a determination to refrain from any unnecessary movements during this time, to allow our mind to settle and remain in this calm and settled state for the duration. But as I mentioned yesterday, if any time during the practice a severe pain arises, which you feel you have to alleviate by stretching or standing or twisting or engaging in any other gentle activity that will relieve that tension, then definitely be kind to yourself and do that. But the more we can remain still, calm, upright, and relaxed, the deeper our meditation practice can become. Just remember, this is not a test of endurance. It's an attempt to clarify and use in the best possible way our mind. So, to help settle our body into a state of relaxation and release any excess tension or tightness that may have accumulated, such as during our sleep last night, or any activities we may have engaged in up to now, this morning, during which tension and tightness can accumulate. Mm-hmm. So in order to release any of that excess tension or tightness, we can take 3 long, slow, luxurious cleansing breaths, which I will describe in a moment before we actually engage in it. So these cleansing breaths are somewhat exaggerated breaths. In other words, we're pulling the breath in further than we usually do. We're bringing it down lower than we usually do. We're holding on to it a bit longer than we usually do. And then when we exhale, we're exhaling with a bit more force than we usually do. This expression I'm using, than we usually do, I'm referring to the kind of breath that happens when we're not being conscious of the breath, when it just comes and goes of its own accord. Here, we're exaggerating the intake, the holding, and the exhalation of the breath. And we're doing it with the thought and the feeling, the actual sensation of cleansing ourselves of any surface tension or interference that may be causing our mind to be foggy or sluggish or overly distracted or anything else that might be an interference. So when we start, and I'll give the signal for that in a moment, right? We take a series of 3 of these cleansing breaths. We will start by filling ourselves up as if taking a long, slow, luxurious intake, as if we were giving ourselves an internal massage. And then we pull that breath down as low as we can, to the very bottom of our abdomen, if possible, and hold it, but not until it becomes uncomfortable. We will receive a sign it's about to become uncomfortable. If we were to wait any longer, the out-breath would be an explosion. So we just wait until we have a feeling, if I were to hold the breath any longer, then I would no longer be comfortable. So that's the signal to then expel, consciously expel the breath. And as we do that, putting a bit of force behind it, we're not only expelling that breath, but together with it, we're expelling whatever interfering energy may be affecting our body or our mind. It's almost as if we're blowing it away, allowing that negative energy to dissolve into space, leaving no trace behind. And once that exhalation is finished, then we take the second cleansing breath. As before, a long, slow inhalation, drawing it down deep into ourselves, which brings into us a clearing energy, a vibrant white light energy. Then, before it becomes uncomfortable to hold the breath longer, then a gently expelled, complete exhalation. And then when that's finished, we engage in the third of the cleansing breaths, following those same instructions. Okay, so just review in your own mind what the steps of the cleansing breath is. So you're a good idea of how to do it. And then when we do begin, of course, all of us here in this group will be doing it at our own speed. But when I myself finish the 3 cleansing breaths, I'll pause for a while to make sure that all of us have caught up. And then we can begin the rest of the session. So now, with a relaxed, comfortable, upright posture, now is the time to begin to take these 3 cleansing breaths. And then remain for a moment in whatever state of increased clarity or relaxation these cleansing breaths may have produced for us. And I'd like to pause in a sense at this moment to see if there's any questions about the beneficial way of doing these cleansing breaths. Do you have a feeling when you were practicing, did you have a feeling that there was an actual exchange of energy? That before the cleansing breath, there was a certain amount of darkness or fogginess in the mind, or a certain amount of tension, something like that. And then by drawing in the clarifying white light energy and allowing it to go deep into ourselves and begin the process of dissolving whatever tension it may have found in our body or in our mind. And then at the end, gently expelling it so it disappears, leaving no residue behind. So you actually feel at the end, when you're resting at the conclusion of the 3 cleansing breaths, there has been some palpable exchange of energy. Something limiting or negative, at least to a certain extent, has been released, and something positive, clear, and beneficial, at least to some extent, has been brought into oneself. Okay. So that's a question I'd like you to answer. Do you feel something like that has happened? Or do you feel that perhaps the practice of these cleansing breaths has not been well understood? Anyone?
John, this is Michael.
Hey, Michael.
Yesterday, I felt like I had more of that than today, but I think it's because yesterday you didn't give as detailed an explanation. And so I think I was focused more on the mechanics of it today than just the doing of it or letting it do me, as we were talking about yesterday, being done by it yesterday, and today I was doing it more. And I think that was just an artifact, though, of me focusing on the mechanics rather than just letting it happen. But
Yes,
yesterday I thought it was great.
yeah. And was that when you during yesterday's experience, was that when we're really focusing on the cleansing breath, or just the breathing of letting the breath come and go as it will?
Oh no, that's when we were focusing on the cleansing breath, that taking it in and then just really letting go. And yet, and as I said yesterday, I kind of let that happen to me. And today I was focused more, as you were talking, I was focusing myself more on the mechanics, and I just needed to I needed to let that part, that needed to be something I let go.
Well, that's actually a very astute observation, because even though instructions are meant to help a practice, it's very easy that instructions may interfere with the practice, because I think the experience you had yesterday sounds very much like beginner's luck, right? Meaning that you came to it with a fresh, open, let's see what's going to happen kind of mind, which was not covered over by too many explanations. And then there was a possibility to fall into it, right? But it's also possible that in repeated experiences, that initial experience would, diminish. So today I was trying to give more explanation so that we could more consciously get into the practice, but that has within it the danger that the explanation becomes a distraction. Right? It's like in sports, they talk about a beginner doing very well because he or she doesn't know how difficult the sport they're engaging in is. So they just relax and just do it. And then with that beginner's luck, that kind of freshman mentality, Zen mind, beginner's mind, sometimes it's called, then one can have very powerful experiences right off the bat. But then after that, when we repeat it, or when we try to correct any misunderstanding we may have had about the practice, then it's like the sophomore jinx. We did it well, then we think of doing it again, and instead of coming to it with a fresh mind, we now come into it with a mind which has the previous experience. And if something happens on the second day, which is different from the previous experience, which is maybe more labored, it becomes difficult. So it's really a matter of trying to learn the technique as well as possible, and then be able to give ourselves up to it and make adjustments when necessary, and avoid making adjustments when not necessary. Okay, but that's a very, very excellent summation of many people's experience. Thank you. Anything else? Oh, and was there anything more that you wanted to add to that, Michael? Okay.
No, that was it.
Hi, John. Can you clarify on the exhale whether it should be through the nostrils or through the mouth? Like, does it matter, or is it more beneficial to be through the nostrils?
I see. Generally speaking, in most, not all, but in most breath awareness meditations, the in-breath and the out-breath are through the nostrils. That's quite true. One of the reasons for that is that if the inhalation is through the mouth, it tends to overheat the body. So the inhalation through the nostrils is pretty much the regular, except for perhaps very specialized forms of meditation, is the general instruction. As far as the exhalation is concerned, there is actually a purpose for exhaling through the mouth. One doesn't have to do it, but it can be helpful, because after we've drawn in the clarifying white light energy with the in-breath and have held it for a while, now the main thing that we're trying to do when we exhale is just to expel, not violently, but expel as completely as possible whatever dark, confused, tense energy we may be experiencing in our body or in our mind. Right? And so it's helpful. We can extend the duration of the out breath. And it's easier, much easier, to extend the duration of the out breath if that's going through our mouth. So, for example, I didn't mention this before. This would probably be, again, as Michael pointed out, too much instruction to give at one time. But it can be very, very helpful to imagine, or to even, emulate that when we're doing the exhaling, we purse our lips almost as if we were going to whistle, but without making the actual whistling sound. So, like this. And by pursing our lips this way, we're providing a resistance against the out-breath. So it allows us to extend the out-breath much longer than would normally be the case. So actually, let's all of us try that now. We'll take, I'll explain it first because you can't do it while I'm explaining it. We take a long, slow in-breath and then hold it. And then when we're ready and we purse our lips, we do something like this. So we can extend it quite a long time. And then during that extensive exhalation, we feel that we're expelling in a gentle but complete manner whatever negative energy has built up in the beginning of the practice. And just allow it to go out into the universe and dissolve and leave no trace behind. And then when we've completely emptied ourselves of that, then we take the next inhalation through the nostrils. A long, slow inhalation, hold it. And before it becomes uncomfortable, we can purse the lips and gently expel it. And then another inhalation, holding it, and then an exhalation. Why don't we try that and see if that approach gives you the feeling that you're actually exchanging energy. You're actually bringing in something white, of a clear, vibrant, having a clarifying nature to it. And then as we hold on to it, I don't know whether they sell it here in New Mexico, but back in New Jersey, they sell Drano. It's something you pour into the sink and it dissolves the gunk in the drain. So imagine the in-breath is like Drano. It goes in and starts dissolving whatever tension, whatever blockages we're experiencing. And then when it's time to breathe out, feel that we're expelling that dark, foggy energy with the out-breath. Okay? So let's try that again. So in a moment, begin the first of 3 consecutive cleansing breaths. Try to feel the exchange of the clarifying energy that we're breathing in It enters into not only into our lungs and our breathing spaces, but into every cell of our body, begins to dissolve whatever blockages, like Drano, that it might be experiencing. And then with the out-breath, an extensive expulsion of the energy with the out-breath in preparation for the next in-breath. Okay, let's start that now. And then at the conclusion of that third exhalation, we allow the breathing to return to normal, no longer paying attention to it so closely, and simply rest in the experience of whatever clarity may have been generated by this practice, just staying in that resultant state of mind for a moment. Okay, so we won't be doing any more cleansing breaths in this session now. And that is because there's several reasons, but one is that doing too many cleansing breaths in a row can make us quite lightheaded, as happens when we hyperventilate. So we're just doing a series of 3 and maybe repeating it one more time. That's quite sufficient to begin with. But now again, I'm curious to find out, did you feel that this run through of the cleansing breaths was this time the exchange of energy, was it felt to be more obvious or less obvious than before? Did the practice flow better, or was again a problem of too many instructions? How did you feel this time?
I thought it flowed much. For me, it flowed much better without trying to think about how deep am I breathing, how long am I holding it, how much am I pushing out, when just recognizing that the purpose is to breathe in and focus on that coming in, and then breathing out all the negativity. The rest of it all just kind of fell. For me, the rest of it all kind of fell into place. But I think that it might not have fallen into place quite as well had we not have done the mechanics of it. Had I not done the mechanics of it for the first 3.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's possible. Well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that the second time through it somehow went better than the first time. We hope that things go in that direction, but that's not always the case. Donnie, I saw you, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Donnie, I saw you nodding your head as if you had some experience you wanted.
The thing is, I have really bad reception, so you probably can't hear me.
I can hear you, not so well, but I can hear you.
I was just nodding in agreement. You probably can't hear me.
You're nodding in agreement because of what?
Because I agreed with what he was saying.
No, I was wondering what you were agreeing with. In other words, whether it was an experience that you were having, or it was just the way you listen. Okay. Anything else? Lou, do you mind sharing whatever your experience may have been?
The first time I didn't feel a lot going on, but the second
Yeah.
time with the pursing of the lips, the exhale was definitely able to extend it quite a bit. And that allowed me to empty out more air so that the subsequent inhale was a more thorough inhale. And that seemed to help everything a lot. It just seemed to trigger a better inhale because of the extended exhale.
Yeah, well, that's very encouraging to hear, because that's kind of the direction that this cleansing breath is going into, that you get a more complete exchange of energy. So the extensive exhale allows more positive energy on the inhale, and then of course it allows for more expulsion of negative energy with the exhale. Right? I have a feeling that as we practice this and we get used to it, we can have a similar result just breathing in and out through the nostrils. Once we get a little bit more familiarity with how we can modify the breathing to increase the intake of positive energy and increase the expulsion of negative energy, we might not have to each time purse the lips and exhale through the mouth. We might be able to do that just with normal breathing through the nose. But it's very, very helpful, at least to build up that habit, the way it was described this time: the inhalation through the nostrils, the extended exhalation through the pursed lips of the mouth. Okay. And I don't want to put anybody on the spot here, but Mary, did you have something that you wanted to report from your experience or ask about?
No, but the report is that the pursing of the lips was very effective.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, it was helpful. It felt more like a Tong Lin experience, but it was very helpful. It was very helpful.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm trying to think of who it was who first told me, when giving these instructions, about the pursed lips and expelling the exhalation. And I may be mistaken, but I think that was an early teaching I heard from Lama Yeshe. I believe that was the case. And Venerable Losang, does this accord with other instructions that you've had in the past, or did you find that helpful?
Yeah, some of the nuance is a bit more detailed sometimes than, which is great. It's new ways of like extending the out breath and things. It's some nuances are a bit different, but very helpful.
Oh, good. Thank you.
John?
Yes,
It's Michael.
Michael?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Sorry.
Yeah. I think probably the reason, if you know anything about lung disease, people who have COPD, they trap air in their lungs. And so this is, and in medicine, this is called purslant breathing. And what it does is the resistance helps keep the airways open. I mean, it's exactly what Lou said. The resistance helps keep the airways open so that you can purge more air out. And so when Lou was saying that, it kind of struck me that I had heard that before, and I got the exact. For me, I felt exactly the same. It was much easier to purge that air out, and I could take a much better exhalation, which then allowed me to take a deeper inhalation. But the mechanics of it, at least from if you have lung disease, is it holds the airways open because of the pressure that you're building up, instead of the airways collapsing, instead of the tubes collapsing in front of the airways and trapping all the airways behind the tubes. It allows the lungs to empty better. So there's physiology behind it.
That's interesting to know. I hadn't heard that specific connection to lung disease and that technique, but that's good to know. Thank you. Okay. So okay. I'm getting the feeling that since we've already been going for about 45 minutes, and I didn't know it was going to take me or us this long to get through these initial practice, I'm getting the feeling that it'd be helpful for me myself just to take a break long enough to stand or stretch or wash my face. So why don't we give ourselves 3 minutes? I'll come back in 3 minutes, and then we can continue. So we can start up again. So oh, good. It looks like we're all back. So this first hour that we spent was broken up quite a bit because of the repeated, because of the motivation in the beginning and the repeated defining of the instructions for the cleansing breath through the main part of it. So what I would like to offer now is a more uninterrupted practice, which I envision will take somewhere in the vicinity of 25 minutes, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. And during this time, we're going to attempt a synthesis of the 3 phases of meditation that we did yesterday. But I'll repeat them here. The breath awareness meditation that we did yesterday was divided into one, the initial one, in which the concentration, or the focus, I should say, the focus is on adopting an upright and relaxed state of mind and using the breath to help with that relaxation. Then the second one was stability, proceeding with the breath awareness meditation to provide some stability to our attention. So relaxation and stability. And then finally, the third one was vividness. And that is, so we try to increase the focus of our attention more directly, more narrowly. So instead of focusing, for example, on the exhalation through the entire body or through the abdomen, we focus, we contract the focus of our attention to a much subtler area, just the so-called gateway to the nostrils, the area where the air moves in and out and stimulates this very subtle energy here. And then we focus, instead of focusing on the whole body or focusing on the rise and fall of the abdomen, we try to shift our attention to this subtler object, and then we do the breath awareness from that point. So without going into more detail, we can start this practice. So again, we try to adopt a posture which is comfortable enough that we can sit for approximately 20-25 minutes without it being too much of a problem, that we can be comfortable and upright and clear during it. So we start by making ourselves as comfortable and relaxed as possible, and setting the determination to remain as still as possible for the duration of this somewhat longer session. Assuming an upright posture of vigilance with our sternum slightly raised. It's not necessary now to do 3 cleansing breaths, but if you think it would be helpful, then take 1 cleansing breath. The clear, vibrant energy flows into us with the in-breath, and then the somewhat extended out-breath allows us to let go as completely as possible of any interfering energies that we may experience. And then we relinquish any conscious control over the breath, simply allowing it to come and go of its own accord, as if the air were breathing us rather than we were breathing the air. And our task is simply to pay attention to it. We pay attention to the breath by being aware of the tactile sensations that are engendered as the air flows into us and out of us. Initially through the rise and fall of the abdomen, with the experience of those physical sensations as our clothing is pressed by the rise of the skin of our abdomen. And then, in a gradual manner, we shift our attention to a much finer, subtler object. The area that we'll refer to as the gateway of the breath. That is the surface of the skin that exists just below the nostrils and just above the upper lip. And as I mentioned yesterday, if we have a hard time finding that place, since it's much subtler, since the sensations there are not as obvious as the rise and fall of the abdomen, then it can be very, very helpful to begin by just touching this gateway area, touching it with our finger, almost as if we were gently tickling it. And then when we drop our hand, focus on the remaining sensations, the echoes of those sensations. And that gives us a place to concentrate, a place to focus on. So we narrow the focus of our attention, paying attention to the subtle sensations aroused at the gateway of the breath, as the breath passes in and out through the nostrils. As we narrow our focus and increase the resolution of our awareness, try to remember to remain as soft and relaxed as possible without contracting the muscles of our face or any other part of our body. So with our mental focus on this gateway area, our main task is to remain attentive to the present moment of each incoming and outgoing breath. Thus, when the in-breath is happening, we're aware breath is flowing in. And then when the out-breath is happening, right at that time, we're aware breath is flowing out. So during this part of the exercise, which will occupy most of the remainder of our time, we're not trying to exert any special control over the breath. As much as we can, we're just letting go and allowing the breath to happen of its own accord, as it does, for example, when we're asleep or when we're not paying attention at all to our breath. And at that time, as long as we're still alive, the breath is happening without any need for us to control it consciously. It's coming in of its own accord. It goes out of its own accord. And we simply try to remain aware of it as it is happening. If you find it helpful, you might simply change your ordinary perspective. Instead of thinking, I'm breathing the air, think, the air is breathing me. It is flowing in of its own accord, flowing out of its own accord, and I'm simply paying close attention to it. Try to remain mindful of what we are doing. Remember, the task at this point is simply to be aware of the incoming and outgoing breath, and remain focused on those sensations of the gateway of the breath. So the main part of our attention is retaining this mindfulness, continuing to focus on the sensations produced by the incoming and outgoing breath. However, sooner or later, as we have doubtless already discovered, our attention goes elsewhere. To something more interesting, perhaps, than this simple movement of inhalation and exhalation. Our attention may become hijacked by a judgment that we make. Such as, I don't like this meditation. I find this practice boring. Or perhaps, oh, it's going better than yesterday. I like this. If we find ourselves making any such observation, any such judgment like that, without any sense of blame or self-recrimination, just let go of those judgments and escort the attention back, continuing to observe the present moment of the incoming and outgoing breath, and then continue as before. And inevitably, sooner or later, something else takes our attention. It could be a sound coming from outside, and our attention jumps to that. It could be a smell coming in from the kitchen, and we start thinking about our next meal. It could be something we suddenly remember we were meant to be doing later today. So our mind is hijacked by a memory of the past or an anticipation of the future. It's completely natural for all such extraneous experiences to arise as we're trying to tame the mind in this way. So let's just use a corner of our attention, what's known as introspection, to keep tabs on how our attention is going. Are we still on the stated object? which in this case is simply the incoming and outgoing breath? Or has my attention been hijacked elsewhere? And if it has, again, without any sense of thinking I'm a bad meditator or blaming ourselves in any way, or feeling disgusted or frustrated, without any other comments, just simply note, the mind has drifted away. So we let go of that extraneous object. And sometimes it's helpful to let go as we're breathing out, because the breathing out is a letting go experience. So we can let go of the breath, and as we do, let go of whatever extraneous object may have interrupted our attention to the breath, whether it's a sound, a smell, a judgment, a memory, an anticipation, or anything else. Gently letting go of it with the out breath, and then using mindfulness, remember to pay attention to the present moment of the incoming and outgoing breath. So for the remainder of this session, whenever our quality of introspection recognizes that we're no longer focused on the incoming and outgoing breath, we use that power of introspection to replace, in other words, to place again our attention on the original object, the present moment of the breath. This is replacement, building up the mental muscle to bring our mind back onto the object of meditation. And since listening to instructions itself can be an interruption to our ability to remain concentrated on the incoming and outgoing breath, periodically during the rest of this meditation session, I will simply say replacement. If your mind has been remaining on the incoming and outgoing breath, there's nothing you have to do when you hear that word replacement. But if at that moment your mind has drifted away, then simply let go of that extraneous object and replace the attention on the present moment of the incoming and outgoing breath, and continue as before. And we'll do this for another 15 to 20 minutes. replacement. 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 And now we can bring this meditation exercise to an end. Removing our attention from the incoming and outgoing breath. And simply for a moment, remain in a state of choiceless awareness. Our mind not focusing on this or on that, but simply reflecting whatever experience might be arising. Experiencing the mere appearance of whatever impresses itself on the clear mirror of our mind. Okay. So I want to mention something that happened here where I was meditating, and then opening up for any comments you may have or experiences you may wish to share where you were meditating. Outside my house where I'm at the moment, there was the sound of children and some adults speaking, probably in the neighboring yard. And in the beginning, when I heard these sounds, my mind naturally went to them, because listening to conversation, even if it's not well heard, well understood, is more interesting than simply observing the incoming and outgoing breath. In fact, almost anything is more interesting than that. But the more I tried to practice bringing my attention back to the incoming and outgoing breath from any of these distractions, the more I discovered that these sounds, the sounds themselves did not change. The adults and the children's conversations didn't change. But they seemed to move further into the background. The sensations of the incoming and outgoing breath now seem to be occupying the foreground of my attention. And these other experiences, such as the sound of the conversation, or anything else that may have been arising in my mind, it's not that they stopped. But they became less obtrusive, as if they were happening further and further away from me. Though, of course, in reality, that was not the case. But as they became less prominent, they lost their ability to hijack my attention. And if, at a moment, one particular voice, for example, did hijack my attention, it was relatively easy to allow it by itself to return to the background, and then I could simply continue observing the present moment of the incoming and outgoing breath. With experiences like that, distractions ceased to become, distractions cease to remain distractions. We might be aware of them, but they no longer have the ability to move our attention away from where we initially set it, in this case, the breath. Of course, that kind of experience comes and goes. Sometimes even the slightest interference becomes a major distraction. Other times, when our focus is quite strong and quite well maintained, the same kind of stimulus loses its ability to hijack our attention. But that's why all of this meditation is referred to as a practice. We practice cultivating the mindfulness on a particular object, such as the breath. We practice bringing our attention back again from interferences, replacing the attention with introspection, and slowly, and not necessarily in any linear fashion, slowly we build up the strength of an inner muscle, an inner mental muscle. It takes more to distract the mind and less energy to bring it back. So, even though so far this weekend we've only been doing this practice for just a very short period of time, if anyone wishes to share what their experience was of practicing this mindfulness and introspection and replacement of attention, this would be a good time to do it. But I'm not going to call on anyone like I did last time. I'll let you raise your hand if you want to say something. And if you want to remain silent, that's you're right.
Thank you, kind sir.
I heard the voice, but
Thank you, kind sir.
I heard, but I can't see who's speaking.
No, you can't see. Thank you.
All right. If there are no other comments that anyone wishes to make or experiences you wish to share, then I'm going to say a few concluding remarks for this session, which is meant to end in about 15 minutes from now, if I'm correct. Is that true, Venerable? Yeah. And then we'll have a break, for example, a lunch break for another 45 minutes, and then conclude with another hour and 15 minutes after that. So it ends at 3 o'clock my time and 4 o'clock time for many of you here. Okay. So I wanted to give a segue, a connection between what we've been doing yesterday and earlier today, and what we'll introduce this afternoon in the final sessions. Right now, we've been focusing our meditative energy on just honing the ability to focus the mind. And of course, this isn't something that can be accomplished in a short period of time. I myself have spent the vast majority of my life being very, very distracted. So even trying to hold on to one observation for a period of time is very, very challenging. But with practice, it's possible to extend this. But the aim of the spiritual practice, a meditative practice, is not simply to be able to focus the mind. Though, of course, that has great benefit. If we practice focusing even on some object, like the breath, then it builds up that habit. And then even when we want to engage in a worldly activity, we find we have more resources for that attention. Like, for instance, if it was tax season now and we had to fill out our taxes, the kind of attention that we can build up even through a practice such as this, breath awareness, can make the time that we spend filling out our taxes be more concentrated, more efficient, more beneficial. But of course, the main reason why we engage in a meditative practice is not so that we increase our ability to pay attention while we're filling out our taxes. It has to be something more than that. And so, as we mentioned briefly at the very beginning yesterday, the aim of the spiritual practice is to increase the frequency and the strength of states of mind which are beneficial, are virtuous, are powerful in the sense of being able to provide us and the people that we interact with the happiness and sense of well-being and peace of mind that all of us desire. And at the same time, to reduce the strength of those destructive states of mind, such as what are known as the three poisonous delusions of desirous attachment, fearful and angered repulsion, and closed-minded ignorance, that are responsible ultimately for any of the dissatisfaction and suffering we experience in our life, and interfere and interrupt any spiritual journey we may be on to be able to fulfill our highest potential. So in the session that we'll have after the break, I'm going to introduce one, and if I have time, two meditations which are very, very powerful for being able to slowly build up the power of these virtuous, powerful, helpful, and extremely beneficial states of mind through becoming familiar with them. And remember, as we said earlier, the true meaning of meditation is becoming familiar with these positive states of mind. Okay. So we just have 8 or 9 minutes left. If there's any questions, we can do that for the remaining time. And if there are no questions at all, we can start our break a little bit earlier. So is there any comments or questions you have before we go for lunch? No. Okay, we can go for lunch now. See you at in an hour and 8 minutes. All right. So so far in this weekend, of which we have only 1 hour left, we've been doing meditations focusing on breath awareness, initially cultivating the ability to relax, stabilize our attention, and then make it more vivid, more concentrated. Of course, we only just started the practice, and something that takes quite a while to increase its quality. But that's where we reached so far. And what I thought to do, after opening up to see if there's any questions from you, what I thought to do is finish off with one, or if we have time, 2 meditations which use whatever concentrated ability we cultivated through the breath awareness meditation to do much more interesting kind of meditation where we use that ability to cultivate some positive quality, in this case, loving kindness. But before I get into that, it's possible, since this will be the last time that we're going to be together this weekend, and who knows for how much longer after that, that maybe there's something that you'd like to bring up or ask about, or a particular question for the remainder of this afternoon. If there's something like that, I'd like to hear from you. And if not, or when that's finished, then we can do this meditation that I just alluded to. So is there anything that any of you would like to bring up? It looks like there isn't. Okay, good. Good. All right. So as is always the case, we start by finding a comfortable upright posture. Settling the body and employing those 3 qualities I just mentioned of relaxation, stability, and vigilance of attention. So we find a comfortable upright posture. Then take 1 or 2 cleansing breaths, a long, slow inhalation in which we draw into ourselves any positive, vibrant white light energy to eliminate any of the darkness or heaviness we might be feeling inside. And then a long, slow, and complete exhalation, letting go or gently expelling any negative energy that may have built up. And then, by way of preparation, we can stabilize our attention by observing 10 consecutive breaths. Not the kind of cleansing breaths, but simply allowing the breath to happen on its own accord, coming and going as it will, without trying to particularly control it in any way, but simply observing it. Watching the breath go in and go out as if the air were breathing us, rather than we consciously breathing the air. Observe the whole course of each in and out breath. Observe the breathing mindfully, vigilantly, but without trying to regulate the breath, particularly in any way. By observing 10 consecutive breaths like this, let's bring some focus, some stillness and clarity to our attention. And now, with our attention somewhat calmed and focused by even that brief breath awareness, let us try to move on from this passive mode of awareness to one in which we fully use our powers of imagination, of vigilance, of vision, intelligence, and even our discursive abilities. In this, we try to cultivate a sense of loving kindness by recalling the very nature of loving kindness, which is a heartfelt yearning. May I and other people like myself, may each one of us find happiness, genuine happiness, and cultivate the true cause of such happiness and well-being. We start by directing this loving kindness towards ourselves. And we do this with the wish, may I find the happiness I seek, the fulfillment, the satisfaction that is my heart's desire. So beginning this way, bring to mind the kind of genuine happiness that your heart longs for. Something deeper than the momentary pleasure that arises when things happen to go well. When we seek happiness, when we long for happiness for ourselves, let's envision something deeper than the pleasure that arises when things happen to go our way, because they won't always go our way. They can't always coincide with our desires. But can we envision a quality of well-being, a quality of flourishing, a quality of inner happiness They can carry us through the good times and the bad. How do we envision our own happiness? A profound and richly meaningful life that brings fulfillment. Let our imagination play. Envision your own genuine happiness and allow the longing, the yearning to arise. May I find this happiness, not just someday in the future, but may I cultivate the cause for this happening right now. May my life lead to greater and greater fulfillment of this vision of well-being. All this is happening within the theater of your own mind. You are the director. You are the writer. There's no limit except your own imagination. So as you get in touch with what it is that would bring you this sense of fulfillment, this sense of true abiding well-being, even when things aren't going well, picture that in your mind. And get in touch with that deep wish. May my life lead to the greater and greater fulfillment of this vision of well-being. Recognize that there's nothing in either the outer environment, in your body, or in your mind that fundamentally or absolutely obstructs the realization of this vision of your own flourishing. So without reluctance, bring forth this deep yearning. May I find the happiness I seek. May I be truly well and happy. And may I cultivate the causes that give rise to such flourishing. Give your imagination free rein on this. Using hints from your memory of times when you felt such genuine happiness and well-being. It did not rely on outer circumstances, changing fortune, but had something to do with inner qualities. Qualities that may be covered, but cannot be destroyed by outward circumstances. So using the power of your imagination, imagine receiving from the world from day to day all that you might need in your pursuit of genuine happiness and well-being. Imagine that the world is rising up to meet you and supporting you in your pursuit of this genuine happiness. Imagine how your life may unfold over time so that your own heart and mind become a wellspring of contentment, of genuine happiness. Imagine how you may grow and transform in such a way that is conducive to your own true flourishing. Put aside any thoughts that might arise in which you feel you're not worthy of happiness. Because according to the teachings of the Buddha, all beings without exception, definitely including ourselves, have the potential for the happiness of full awakening, full enlightenment. And none of us live in isolation. We are not only being constantly influenced by those around us and by the environment, but we are also constantly influencing those around us and the world at large. Our own genuine happiness can therefore only be realistically conceived as a state of flourishing that occurs in interdependence with the entire world. So, in our pursuit of genuine happiness, imagine what we would love to be offering to the world and what kind of presence we would like to bring to the world. Here, imagination is very important. So let our imagination play. Imagine that you are experiencing at this moment a quality of genuine happiness and well-being, the happiness that is your heart's desire. And now expand the field of the awareness, the field of this yearning, thinking, may I find happiness and the true causes of happiness. And let this field of awareness and this field of loving kindness expand beyond your own person to those in your home, perhaps a spouse, perhaps children. And let the larger yearning arise. To those in your home, focusing on them and thinking, may you, each one of you, find the happiness that you seek May you find and cultivate the causes of that happiness. For you too, like myself, are deserving of such happiness. May you all be well and happy. So we start with people that we are already close to, people who live in our home, who are near and dear to us. Because for them, even if problems may occasionally arise, there is a wellspring of shared affection that we already have. And so it's easy to imagine, it's easy to wish for these near and dear beings to experience the same kind of happiness that we would wish for ourselves. A true lasting happiness. Something beyond mere momentary pleasure. So thinking of any of these near and dear people, bringing them vividly to mind, as if we were directly communicating with them. From the depths of our heart, cultivate the wish, may you be well and happy. Now, before we expand the scope of this meditation, check to see that we've contacted this genuine wish that we have in our hearts for even just one person who is near and dear to us, for whom this wish spontaneously arises. May you have the happiness you seek. Someone who, when they are experiencing this happiness, for them we feel a resonance, as if their happiness is our happiness. Try to get in touch with this fellow feeling. If we find it difficult to feel it for another human in our family, in our home, maybe there's a pet, a dog, for example, or a cat, or some other animal for whom we feel a natural affection. Someone who's happy to see us, and some pet who, when we observe, brings a happiness in our own heart. Sometimes people find it easier to generate this yearning for a pet to be happy than it is to generate it for a human, because our relationship with humans might be more problematic. But still, there is a foundation for affection. See if we can tune into it. And bringing someone near and dear to our attention in this way, see if we can cultivate the feeling. May you be well and happy. And no matter what their condition is at present, use the power of imagination to envision them experiencing this health and happiness right now. Envision it so vicariously that we ourselves can feel it. Now let us continue to expand the field of our awareness to include those in a broader area. For example, in our neighborhood, not just our home, but our surrounding neighborhood. Think of the people living there, the different houses. On the essential level, there's no difference between ourselves and any of these people, any of these neighbors. There's not one person there that wants to be unhappy. There's not one person there that doesn't enjoy being happy. And they each have the potential for it. So let this yearning arise in your heart, in your mind. May each of you, all my neighbors, may you, like myself, find genuine happiness and the causes of happiness. You may include people in your workplace, colleagues, and others that you work with a recognition that each one, like yourself, wishes for happiness. Expand the field of your loving awareness with the yearning. May each of you, like myself, find the genuine happiness that you seek, and may you find the causes for such happiness. Envision how wonderful it would be if all of these beings, including yourself, had such a genuine feeling of well-being. How wonderful the world would be. See if by concentrating in this way, getting in touch with your deepest heart's longing, and using your imagination, see if it can be like lighting a pilot light in your heart. It might start as rather small, a kind of glow in the center of one's heart. And initially that glow may only reach just our own self, suffusing our own body, effortlessly wishing for oneself to be well and happy. But as we recognize and come in contact with the shared wishes for happiness of all beings, this glow, this pilot light, this warm feeling in our heart can start to grow. Allow it to fill our entire body. And even overflow so that what started within our own heart is now a sphere in which we are at the center. And this sphere is growing wider and more expansive. It first touches those beings, human and animal alike, for whom we already feel great loving kindness. Our dearest friends, family members, pets, and the like. And as this heart-centered sphere grows wider and more inclusive, the wish for all of these near and dear beings to be well and happy grows stronger. Imagine it continues to grow. Including those in our own home, reaching out to those in our neighborhood, and including others with whom we are in daily contact, such as those in our workplace. Allow the thought and the wish to grow. May all of you have the happiness you are looking for. May you be well. May you flourish. And give full rein to the imagination to picture all of these beings experiencing such a sense of well-being, of genuine happiness. Let this space of this loving kindness become boundless, embracing all sentient beings, all beings who, like oneself, experience joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain, all of us sharing the same yearning. May I find happiness. May I find peace. And include not only people leading virtuous lives, good lives, but also those who, out of confusion, have let their lives be oriented around hatred, violence, greed, or selfishness. For all such beings, cultivate the wish, may we all, with no exceptions, recognize the true cause of our happiness. Recognize that our happiness is not independent of those around us, but can only exist in interrelationship with all other beings. So may we all find the happiness we seek and cultivate the true causes of such happiness. His Holiness the Dalai Lama has offered a very simple, very brief practice for cultivating this loving kindness. It's associated with the breath. We become aware of the breath coming in and going out, as in any breath awareness meditation. And we start by focusing more on the in-breath. And as we breathe in, instead of simply noting, as we did before, breath is going in, as that is happening, generate the thought, may I be happy. That thought, that wish, may I be happy, is always there. It is what motivates on a deep level everything we do and say, everything we think. Even if it's covered over occasionally by negative states of mind. At the deepest level of our being, we all have that wish. So as we observe our breath, especially focusing on the in-breath, let that deep yearning be recognized with the thought, with the wish, may I be happy. And as we continue to breathe, each in-breath adds more light to that glow of loving kindness we have for ourselves, until it grows more and more powerful suffusing our entire body and mind. May I be happy. But of course, after every in-breath comes an out-breath. So with that exhalation, cultivate the thought, may all beings be happy. May they share this experience of well-being, the same experience I wish for myself in the very depth of my heart. So see if we can organically connect the in-breath and the out-breath. Each time we breathe in, pulling energy into ourselves, we allow ourselves to feel and think at the deepest level of our being. May I be truly happy. May I have the well-being for which I deeply yearn. And then recognizing that on a fundamental level, there's no difference between ourselves and others. Since all of us wish to be happy, and not one of us actively wishes our own suffering, then with each out-breath, we extend this light of loving kindness from our own heart outwards, thinking, may all beings be happy. The in-breath increases the treasure of loving kindness in our own heart, and the out-breath shares it with others. May I be happy. May all beings be happy. Now let's continue that kind of meditative concentration for a short while. You can change the wording to suit your own feeling. So, for example, the in-breath may be simply, may I be happy. May I have a sense of genuine well-being. May I experience a meaningful life. May I have peace of mind. Or anything else that reflects your own inner wish for well-being. And then when you breathe out, do the same. In your own words, in your own formulation, send those same wishes out to others. And instead of necessarily saying all beings, you may concentrate at first on those who are near and dear to you. Thinking of those dear ones, think, may you be happy. May you experience well-being. May you know peace of mind. May you experience a true flourishing of your spirit. And with those wishes, imagining this dear friend is actually experiencing such a sense of well-being, which we experience as well in sympathy with them. May I be happy. May all beings be happy. May I have peace of mind. May my dear friend have peace of mind. This now becomes the rhythm of our breathing. May I experience flourishing. May others experience flourishing. And now, silently adapt this way of breathing and extend it to others. His Holiness the Dalai Lama at one point had recommended that we do this very simple meditation using the breath, the power of our imagination, and the wish that we all share to have happiness and to overcome suffering for even just 5 minutes a day. And how great a transformation even such a brief practice, a brief heartfelt practice, can bring to our life. With a practice like this, we prime the mind so that whomever we may encounter throughout the course of the day, this sense of loving kindness may easily arise in our hearts, yearning for others' happiness just as we do for our own. This will bring about a spirit of friendliness, of kindness, that will truly season our day. So for one more minute, welcome the in-breath with thought and the wish. May I be happy. May I have peace of mind. May I know true contentment. And flavor each out-breath with the thought, may you have happiness. May you know pure peace of mind. May you experience genuine well-being. Okay? So we now can relax our concentration on this exercise. But if we find it at all helpful, remember, even spending just a few minutes each day, and it's often good to do this before we go out into the world and meet others. to get in touch with our own wish for happiness, with the in-breath thinking, may I be happy, and trying to get in touch with how that feels, how that might be experienced. And then with the out-breath, generating the wish. May others have happiness, know peace of mind, experience genuine fulfillment. Watching the in-breath and out-breath for just a few minutes with thoughts like this can unlock a great treasure of loving kindness. They can transform our entire day and be of great benefit as well to all of the people we meet. All right. So now we have about 15 minutes left in this time that we've put aside for spending time together, practicing some form of meditative concentration. And these practices that we've just touched upon yesterday and today become a very, very powerful basis for one of the most transformative of all meditative practice, which many of you have heard of before, the practice of Tonglen, or sending and receiving, in which we cultivate loving kindness, wishing happiness, and compassion, getting in touch with our wish for ourselves and others to be free of suffering, and mounting this as well on the incoming and outgoing breath. The very, very heart, the very, very essence of the Lojong, or mind training techniques, which is the essence of the entire Mahayana path to full awakening. So if any of the things that we've done so briefly here on this short weekend strikes a chord or a resonance with any of us, then it would be excellent to try to cultivate even that simple 5-minute practice that His Holiness mentioned. Breathing in with the thought, may I be happy, and truly connecting with that wish and visualizing it and feeling it. And then breathing out with the wish, may others be happy. Okay. So in the brief 12 or 13 minutes that we have left together, is there anything that you'd like to bring up? Any experience you had with this meditation, whether helpful or not? Which aspects of the practice may have worked quite well for you? Which may have brought many conflicts or difficulties to arise in your mind? All of these are possible. So if anyone wishes to share their feelings about that, this will be the time to do it.
I like the pilot light.
You like the pilot light?
Yeah, one of the things I don't like about Tonglen is the violence involved in it. The ego, the rock of the ego, and smashing it with a hammer. I'd rather do it the other way around, with this growing the compassion rather than smashing the ego.
I have to say, I resonate very much with what you just said, Lou. And in fact, after a number of years of learning the Tonglen, in which the in-breath kind of attacked, like a lightning bolt, this self-absorption in our heart and pulverized it, I was introduced to a flavor of this meditation which really got past that difficulty. And that was, as we do this practice and build up, starting with loving kindness for ourselves, so that this expanding light of goodness grows in our heart. Then later, and we didn't touch on this aspect of the practice, but later, when we move into the actual Tonglen practice of taking away the suffering of others, the thought is that the pilot light in our heart of loving kindness for ourselves has grown so much stronger, has really lit a expanding sphere of goodness and kindness in our own heart, that when we take on the dark rays of negativity that is oppressing someone else, and as it comes towards us, it can never actually reach us because it's overpowered by the force of the loving kindness glowing in our own heart. It's like sending something contaminated into the sun. By the time it gets anywhere near the sun, it's obliterated by the power of the sun's enormous energy. So in this way, we light this light of loving kindness in our own heart. It acts, in a sense, as a kind of, I don't want to say so much protection, but it doesn't allow anything negative to pierce it, because the loving kindness is so much stronger. And therefore, any of the negativity that our meditation is taking on from others is simply freeing them and ourselves of that negativity. So I agree with you. When I was introduced to that way of doing this practice, though I still think there is a value in focusing on self-cherishing or self-absorption and seeing if there's a way that we can lessen its strength, this approach of being able to take on suffering without the fear of it actually harming us, because the power of our loving kindness is so strong, I find that appeals very much to me. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
There was a story, one of the earliest stories from the life of the Buddha, in which it's very shortly after his enlightenment, and people are only starting to recognize that this being has kind of enormous spiritual quality, that he glows with this effortless loving kindness. And on that occasion, he faced a test. There was a village in which there was a hut that was considered so haunted, so filled of negative energy, that people were afraid to go into it. And the people who did venture to go into it or near it, a lot of them became quite crazed and overwhelmed by the strength of that negative vortex of energy that was in there. And Buddha just went in and sat for the whole night and emerged completely without experiencing any harm. And it was as if the power of his loving kindness was so great that even this vortex of negative energy, so concentrated that it became an object of great fear for many people, was powerless to hurt him and had a transforming effect on the environment as well. And I take that to be very much in this same family as what we were just describing as this way, this special way of doing the Tonglen meditation, for which the loving kindness meditation serves as an excellent preparation. Thank you for bringing that
Good.
up.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else who's still here who would like to throw in 2, 3, or 4 cents?
I have a question,
Please.
John, it's Michael. I try to practice meditation, and I'm pretty successful at setting aside time and for doing that. But after this weekend, one of the things that's occurred to me is maybe, particularly right now, obviously I don't know that this would always be the case, but for now, maybe I should take 5 minutes away from that time, add 5 minutes to the total time, and if I would think of meditation as the main event, right? You don't show up for the main event having not trained.
Yeah.
And maybe I should take 10 minutes training in the in the actual doing of the meditation and focusing on on the mechanics of it, and then say, okay, great, now I've had my 10 minutes today training on my mechanics. Now the rest of my hour, or for the next hour and 15 minutes, for the next 30 minutes, whatever I have, now I'm going to let go of the mechanics, and whatever happens with the mechanics will happen. But over time, potentially that brief focus on mechanics at the beginning of meditation might help me to stay in with good mechanics while the mind is while I am being meditated.
Yeah, that sounds like it could work for you. Yeah, that could definitely be. I think the idea that you seem to be touching on, if I understand correctly, is do something brief that actually touches your heart, that actually generates some kind of feeling, and then using that as the basis for whatever else you might be doing, whatever other practices or however you may expand the meditation like that. If that interpretation is correct or near correct, it seems to make a lot of sense to me. Yeah. It's a little bit in line with what I was saying before, only half jokingly, that when we receive instructions, it's good, it's important to receive instructions, to know how to begin. But after a certain point, we have to trust ourselves to make the kind of adjustments so it personalizes our own meditative practice, so that we're not doing it according to what somebody else has found helpful, but we're doing it in terms of what we find helpful. And as long as we have a general overview, for example, let's say within Buddhism, of the Lam Rim and what the stages of the path are, then we won't be led astray. Our meditation won't suddenly turn into how to cheat people. We'll avoid that kind of obvious pitfall, but we'll be able to personalize our meditative experience so that it's really touching our heart at those sensitive places, and still stay fully aligned with a genuine spiritual development. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we have about 2 minutes left if anyone wants to add anything. If not, we can conclude with our dedications.
John, I really liked that last part of the meditation, what the instructions from the Dalai Lama, may you be happy. And just as a reminder to do that before even you leave the house for 5 minutes. It's really powerful. And and I know it makes a difference. And so I want to listen to the recording again and hear you go through that part again, because that really touched me.
Well, I'm very, very happy to hear that, because, you know, one of the things that I admire most about the Dalai Lama is that for the great breadth and the depth of his understanding, he has this extraordinary ability to reduce things to their real doable essence. You know, Tibetan Buddhism can be quite overwhelming. You know, things are divided into 5 parts, and each of the parts has 17 subdivisions, and you know, it can be quite overwhelming. And if we try to put aside time for a realistic practice, we might find that the time goes by without us ever really getting into the heart of the matter. But something as simple as a pared down breath awareness meditation, in which the in-breath puts us in touch with our own wishes for happiness and well-being, and our out-breath connects us with all beings' wishes for their happiness and well-being. To me, that is so profound in its simplicity. Yeah. And actually, you probably don't even have to, just knowing that much, just what I just repeated in that last minute, would be enough of a guideline for you to construct your own practice. You know how to breathe out, you know how to breathe in, you know how to begin to connect with your own wishes for happiness and expand that to wishes for others. And then all you have to do is link the two together. I don't think you even really need any more instruction. Okay. So I think that's it for us. If there has been even the slightest amount of positive energy generated by any of the things that we've done together or have thought about during this weekend, then of course, may we dedicate that positive energy so that all beings may be released from their mental and physical sufferings, so that we ourselves may be able to follow this path of kindness, clarity, and insight, emulating the path of the great bodhisattvas and moving ever closer to realizing our inborn, potentially enlightened nature, thereby making our life and the lives of those around us as meaningful and beneficial as possible. And also dedicating that energy so that all beings without exception may experience their heartfelt wish for happiness and fulfillment, and for all of those great spiritual teachers, such as, but not limited to, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Khyentse Sopa Rinpoche, and others, may be endowed with long and fruitful lifetimes for the benefit of all beings. May we continue to come in contact with such compassionate gurus in this and in all future states of existence, thereby being able to repay the infinite kindness we receive from each and every one. Okay. So, thank you once again. And maybe sometime
Thank you, John.
we'll have a chance to see you.